Awesome. Shall we get started then?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome all. I'm Rowan Cockett. I'm the co-founder and CEO of CurveNote, and I also work on the executable books team, which is the team and project behind MyST Markdown and tools like JupyterBook. And so today we're going to be talking about writing a scientific paper faster with MyST Markdown. Awesome. So in terms of the agenda that we're trying to cover in this webinar, there's going to be a lot of stuff. It's going to be a lot of live demos and programming and sort of showing you how to evolve a Markdown document into a publication that's both getting it out in docx, PDF, and a website. And so we're going to install some tools. We're going to start with that Markdown document, create a website, get a live preview up, have a bit of a cover on MyST Markdown basics, although I'm going to lean heavily on the documentation for going over that, and then build some of those documentation or those static documents like PDF and Word and LaTeX, and then work a little bit with Jupyter Notebooks, and then try and get this out to the web so that you can share it with a link. And as Steve was saying, he is manning the QA chat in the Zoom chat, and this is being recorded and it will be published online. And so this is just a normal Zoom. So if you're on, if you speak, it'll be on the recording. So, okay. So a bit of background to start. So we're talking about MyST Markdown, which is a project out of the executable books community. And that's a Sloan Foundation funded grant that now has a whole bunch of people who are working on these computational publishing workflows for scientific communication. And some of you who are on the call might have heard of JupyterBook. And so JupyterBook is one of the flagship products that the executable books team puts out. And MyST Markdown is the markup language that is used in JupyterBook. And we're part of that team and working a lot on the MyST Markdown side. And so if you're familiar with JupyterBook, for example, one of the things that it is really good at is taking this MyST Markdown syntax and Jupyter Notebooks and using a documentation engine called Sphinx, which is used a lot in Python documentation, and creating these websites out of it. And so those are really good for educational tutorials, things like course websites, and they're getting more and more use in sort of pushing into scientific communication, like actual publications. And so as it's getting more and more use, there's more and more things that people want to do with this instead of just websites. We also want things like what does actually publish mean? We want to maybe have all sorts of extra information in there, like DOIs, for example, and actually have this be a recognized publication in the scientific space. And maybe we want professional PDFs out of that, and we want to get it out in Word docs, and we want to get out in LaTeX, and we want this to be interactive, and we want it to have all the data in there as well. And we want live code, as well as other types of things that the scientific communication ecosystem cares about. For example, like JATS, which is an XML standard that's used in scientific publishing. And some of the other things that we want is we want this to have live interactive previews in Jupyter Notebooks, and we want that in VSCode as well, and we want it to be super fast. And this is all really challenging stuff. And some of these pieces require us to think in slightly different ways than the tools that we've started on. And so today we're going to be talking about some of the other work that is supporting this vision of taking Markdown and notebook documents and bringing them into all of that stuff that we were talking about, the cool science communication stuff. And we're going to be showing some of that today in terms of getting this out in all sorts of different formats and ways that are pretty professional looking documents that have that structured data behind it. And then the other piece that we're starting to work on, and this is very much in beta right now, is bringing these same viewing and editing experiences directly into the tools that people are already using through extensions, and make it super fast. And what this is called is MyST.js. So this is the JavaScript version of the ecosystem. All of the things that I'll be showing today are through command line tools, so you don't actually have to know any JavaScript. This is just us being able to differentiate the ecosystem and build tools that we're using to actually power this ecosystem. So this is the journey that we'll sort of go on today. So we'll be starting with some Markdown and notebooks, and MyST.js takes this and parses it into structured data, and then that structured data can be exported and rendered into a number of different formats, like websites or journals, and then templated out to various types of static documents. So let's get started with MyST. And so the website for MyST is myst.tools, and we will start by just diving in. And so when you get to the myst.tools website, if you click on the guide up at the top and then find the MyST install, we will go through that today. I've actually already have this installed on my machine, so I'm not going to go through this right now. Currently, the MyST.js ecosystem is using the package managers for Node. And so if you're not familiar with that ecosystem, Steve, who's on the call, has written a long explanation of how to go and install that depending on your platform. And so there should be pretty good documentations for that. And the one thing to note is that you do need Node version 16 or greater for this to work. And then once you've got that up and going, you can just say MyST or npm install MyST CLI. And for this tutorial, we'll be downloading some example content. And this is all this is a Markdown document and a notebook with some images. And so you'll see here that there's a paper.md and a notebook.ipynb. And if we jump into the paper, there's actually nothing special about this at all. We just have some information up at the top, and then this is standard Markdown syntax that we'll be showing in a second. And so this just has some images and some figures, and it has enough information that we'll be able to make some cool documents out of this as well. So with those two things, I've actually already done these two steps. I have the CLI installed, and I have the this quick start repository installed as well. And so the next step after those two things is just come in and type MyST on the command line. So we will go over to the directory over here, and you can see that I have these installed. And I'm just going to type MyST, and it will welcome me to the MyST CLI. And so it can, again, just sort of remind you of the types of things that MyST can do. And I've actually already set this up. I see. And so the piece that this has created is this myst.yaml. And so that's some configuration options for MyST. And I am going to actually now run the server right now. And so I'm going to hit enter. And what this is then going to do is going to download a template. And this is one of the templates in the MyST ecosystem. That's actually the book theme. And this is pretty close and getting sort of more consistent with the Jupyter book ecosystem. And so you can see here that it cloned it, it downloaded that, it installed a few things for that template to be built, and then it's got that up and going and brought that into a local server. And so we can come over here and go to that local host. And here, this is that sort of simple website view of the content that we have. And so you can already see that it's pretty good out of the box. There's all sorts of things that could be maybe slightly better in terms of the figure placements and caption placements, and things like references right now don't have any links. And for example, when I'm looking at some of the references in here, these aren't clickable, and I can't actually see the relationship between those. And some of this information up here isn't very well formatted. And so the first thing that we're actually going to do is try to improve the structure of this metadata a little bit, just to make it look a little bit nicer. And the way that MyST does this is through front matter. And so if we open up the this paper document, the first thing that we're actually going to do is add some YAML front matter to the top of a document. And so people who are familiar with writing in Markdown, this is quite similar to how all sorts of other tools work out there. I'm just going to bring that. This doesn't actually change anything right now, but we're going to start adding maybe a subtitle to this. And when we hit save, you can see that it's rendering over here, and then this is starting to improve on that side. And we're actually going to separate this out a tiny bit more and maybe call that subject, and put that in there. And you can see over here that this is starting to look a little bit nicer. And the other piece that's nice about this is we're actually starting to turn this into data. And so here I'm going to actually add author, and I'll put my name in there, and you can see I'm starting to show up over there, but I want to add a little bit more about this and maybe have a list of authors. And so this is another format that works, and we can start to add a bit more information like affiliations as well, and just say executable books and curve notes. And we'll just separate those out with a semicolon. We could have also done this as a list as well. So you can sort of see that this is a pretty forgiving way to create that this front matter. And it's starting again to turn this into data. And over here, we're going to say license, and we'll hit save. And in this case, we actually have a validation warning. And so it's picked up on some of this and says that actually the correct or the suggested correct code is a CC BY 4.0 license. And that's a very specific license that has a link, and we can start to add information about that. And then this clicks off to the actual code that is hosted by Creative Commons. And so we are doing pretty good here. And so now we actually have the start of our document. And so this front matter is all coming together, and not only does it look a whole lot nicer, we can also see the structured data. And so if we add .json to the end of it, we can actually bring in and actually see all of that information. And now this is expanded a whole lot more. Awesome. Okay. So that's a little bit about adding and sort of transforming structured data in there. And the next parts that we're going to start to do are come back to the tutorial. And so we've added this structured data. Maybe we also actually want to add an ORCID information for me. And if I save that, we can now see that over here. And we can also add an email address, and that will show up with a nice icon as well. Awesome. So one of the other things that we want to separate out, and this will become important when we're starting to export to different templates, is to start to tag different parts of our document. And so, for example, we can put in an abstract in here, and that won't do anything in this view, but in other templates, it might it'll start to sort of highlight the abstract and show keywords, for example. Okay, I think we're gonna jump ahead a little bit and just and start to think about exports as we go. And so the first export that we're going to try is exporting to a Word doc. And so if we say export and we say docx and hit save, we'll actually bring up we'll stop that server. And then the command to do this, if we just look at some of these commands over here, there's init, which we've done, starts that server, and then build is sort of the next command that we're going to go into a little bit. And the build command is what we're going to use to build this document. And so if we say myst build, and then we just tab over and we grab that paper, this is going to go through that export list, perform that export. You can see that it's converting some images using some image magic that will raise an error if that's, or a warning if that isn't installed in your system. For the docx export, that's actually the only thing that you need installed. And then this gets us a docx export. And so there it is. So we've brought that in. This is all working pretty nicely. So far, we're seeing some references, but again, these aren't formatted correctly. And so that's actually the next thing that we're going to do, is we're going to add and improve some of the references, and then we'll come back and start to export this to other formats as well. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Steve, for answering all of the questions in the chat. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is actually improve these references a little bit. So this reference here is a text-only reference, so there's no structured information to that right now. And that is listed down at the bottom with a DOI over here. And so if we go to doi.org and we copy that in, this will bring us to the actual reference. And so actually all we want to do is just link to doi.org. And so we'll come back up to where that reference is, and we will replace this with a markdown link. And so that's markdown link syntax is the square bracket and then the round or brackets and then braces, or brackets and then parentheses. And then we're going to link to that DOI. And we will hit save and say myst start again, just to bring up the server so we can see what we're doing. And so that will be much faster to come up this time. And so now if we come over to the paper, we actually have a link to that citation that has been dynamically brought in from doi.org. And the other piece that it brings in is a nicely formatted reference list that has all of that, that bibliography pulled together in there. And so I'm going to quickly do that for the other reference in here. And just again, link syntax here, that DOI, we can do sort of a shorthand on that with DOI : and hit save. And you can see that that rendered right after I hit save. And if we look for that, that reference is again in there. And I'm seeing a question that this absolutely does work with BibTeX as well. And so if we come over into the project MyST YAML, basically all you have to do, well, if you have a BibTeX file listed in here, it will find it automatically. If you want to specifically reference a BibTeX file, just put it in the list and say main.bib, and that will pick it up, and then you can use the keys directly in there. Fantastic. Okay.
Another question. Another question was your docx export. Does that go out to native headings and citations and things?
It's not fully. I think is the most correct answer there. There's some options that we're exploring to have full links in there right now, and so that uses Word's sort of native link format internally, and it does have the full style guide in there, so you can provide your own docx style and start to tweak that, and that uses all of the various pieces. So I don't have a great demo of that, but I think that's probably a good follow-up webinar on sort of a deep dive on Microsoft Word.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Okay, let's move on to just taking a quick look at exporting this out to PDF now. And so we're gonna say, instead of export docx, we're just gonna say export PDF, and then stop the server for right now, and then look what happens when we say build. And so in this case, this build for a PDF currently requires LaTeX to be installed, and so that is something that you'll have to do. And then this fetches the default template, and it is saying that I'm missing some information like a date, and so I can put a date in there, 01. Is that what we decided was the correct format? Let's see if that doesn't yell at me. Okay, perfect, awesome. Okay, so that's now rendering out to a LaTeX document, and now we can open that, and we will open the PDF, and boom, we have a LaTeX document directly in there. And you can see here that the references are also linked directly. And these references are much nicer than the text-only references. So I'm actually going to go and delete that section from the document as well. And we can rebuild that if we want as well. And that'll come up in a few seconds. So this is actually coming together pretty nicely. A lot of the links are coming in there. We have all of the information about the title, that block that we highlighted in the start with this part abstract. Again, that is starting to be recognized by the template and brought in. We could also bring in some pieces like keywords, for example. So maybe we say keywords are keywords, MyST and Markdown and awesome, something like that. And then we can build that up again, and this will go through. You can see that the LaTeX build only takes a few milliseconds, but the PDF build takes about 5 seconds to actually do. And now we can start to see those keywords coming in. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to continue to improve and use these templates. And I think the next thing that we want to do is actually do a little bit better on the cross-linking between these various figures. And so this is now the first time that I'm really going to introduce, well, other than the abstract, some specific syntax for MyST. And so coming down to the images, the way to create an image in Markdown is with this exclamation mark and then the brackets and parentheses. And in MyST, you create a directive, and this is a fenced code block that is named. And so when I have the VSCode MyST extension installed, I can start typing, and it recognizes that I'm going to create a figure directive, and then it tells me all sorts of things about what that figure directive can have. And so, for example, it can have a name. It has one required argument that happens to be the source of the image. And so we're going to only use those two things today. And so we'll choose figure, and then we will add the source of the image. Maybe we'll save that and see it. Just bring up the server again and see what we're doing. And so this is figure 1 over here. If we refresh, not a whole lot has changed, but under the hood, this is now semantic HTML for a figure instead of an image in a paragraph. And so it's starting to improve some of the accessibility features of the HTML. And so the other piece that I'm going to add is the name. And so we'll do that. And this, once we've added that, that is sort of indicating to the system by default that it should be labeled. And so now we actually have that duplication, but this one has some extra stuff for actually linking to that figure directly. And so we're going to remove that figure 1 text. And now this is sort of so this is a figure directive with an argument, which is the source in this case. And again, I can hover over that and it gives me all sorts of inline help for that directive. Awesome. So the next thing I want to do is I don't want this to say figure 1 in text. I want to be able to cross-reference out to this labeled piece of information. And so similar to the DOI, that cross-reference is just a link. And so this, again, is that link syntax. And so I'll come over here and I'll just add that in. And I'm going to put a hash in front of the ID to say that this is a local ID that we're going to link to. And when I hit save, that now by default puts in that figure 1 information. And then when I click that, that actually is linked directly to the figure. And so anywhere where I'm linking, I can bring that up, and then there's a little cross-reference that'll bring that over to where that document is. And so similar to the link syntax, I can override this with any sort of text override. And you can see that that just has put in the text that you want to, any text that you want to put in there. And if you want the number, you can just use the %s, and that'll come in with the 1. So I can do all sorts of formatting that I want in here and start to put in brackets, or maybe make this bold or something like that. So that's going to start being pretty nice to be able to add styling while also keeping that rich semantically linked information. Perfect. Okay. I think I'm seeing an export PDF. It didn't work in the YAML front matter. This is something that was released yesterday, so do make sure that you're on the most up-to-date version of MyST, and I think that should be good to go. Okay.
Otherwise, otherwise
yeah,
the list better.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
exports with a list. I think actually you have to have a list with a format.
Okay.
And so we'll actually start to do that now. Yeah, and the plural and all of we just went through and improved that to make it a lot more flexible and get down to various pieces from that side. Okay, so now we want to get this out to a different looking PDF document. And so this was the default template. To list all of the templates, you can say MyST templates. and then list. And this will go through and look at all of the templates that are available out there, and you can filter them down through a tech command, for example. And so this again is all of the templates available. Maybe I also want to filter it down by the 2-column one. And so if we say tag 2-column, now we're actually getting out to a few different formats. And so I'm going to click choose this archive 2-column format. And I'm going to come back up to my export front matter. And I can come out to here and say docx, for example. And then this will, when I say MyST build that paper, this will go through and build those 2 exports simultaneously in parallel. And if I want to start to change the template, for example, I can just say template, and then I will add that archive 2-column in there. And then when I build, maybe I can just pass the flag to just build that PDF document, and that will go through and again fetch the template from the GitHub repository, save it to our local path, and then build that using LaTeX. And so this is now actually coming together quite well. This is something that, again, this is a totally different template. It's the 2-column format. We're starting to see that some of these figures have been really improved. So for example, this figure, we're saying see figure 1, and we can come over here, and that has linked through to figure 1 as well. And our references are nicely formatted, and they're all cross-linked through there as well. Awesome. Okay, so I think that's going pretty well. I am just going to go through and change up the rest of the figures and make sure that those are all linked. And so maybe Steve, if you're, while I'm doing that, you can do a little bit of a summary.
Yeah, we'll try. Thanks for all the questions in the chat and everything. So yeah, basically, Ron's been able to get out various being able to insert citations, is now going through and changing images into proper figures and giving them sort of labels, and that enables all the cross-referencing. And one thing is, when you're developing locally like this, you're able to use the website, and that cross-referencing and linking gives all these nice features like pop-up dialogues, pop-up figure snapshots, and it builds the reference list for you automatically. But also when you go out to PDF, it then uses those cross-referencing links in LaTeX, and will then go ahead and start honoring what's happening in your PDF template. So even though you just have one sort of set of content set up, when you export to each of the templates, you'll get a different referencing style, a different citation style, different numbering style that is dictated by that template, which just makes it really nice and easy to go out to different formats for different venues, while still having the same content go out to your own sort of interactive website, which also benefits from all the cross-linking.
Awesome. There was a question about the directive styles from Matthew. And in the syntax overview, there's 2 different ways to have these directive blocks laid out. And one of them is these backtick fences, and the other one are these colon fences, and they are completely interchangeable. The colon fences are slightly better if the main content of your directive is Markdown-like. And by better, that means in more renderers out there, things will render out to Markdown, and it'll be recognized as Markdown. And if the contents of your directive is code-like, for example, math or actual code, using these triple backticks will sort of protect the formatting in those other formats as well. Fantastic. Okay. So I think we are now at the stage where we've started with Markdown. We've played around with the website and the live preview. We've started to see those MyST Markdown basics with adding some of the front matter, some of the citations, some of the directives. We've built a Word document, a PDF document. We can, maybe I'll quickly show how to build a LaTeX document. That will probably not be too surprising. You could literally just add tech in here, and that will add a new format. But if we want to actually show both the source and the PDF file, we can do that, and we can just build the paper again. And this PDF plus tech will do the types of things that you might expect. It'll both have in the build folder, in the exports, it will have that tech folder that you can zip up. It doesn't have any built information from LaTeX in there, so it's sort of the clean state of that, as well as the paper.pdf. And if that's something that we also want to, say, upload to archive, for example, it's kind of nice to be able to just have a zip file from that. And so when we build that now, this will zip up an archive zip, and that will just go wherever you tell it to go. And so that might actually be something that you want to get out to archive, or to a zip file, and maybe save in a repository, for example. Okay, I'm gonna undo that and reorient myself with this side. Okay, so now we've done Word docs, PDF, LaTeX. Is there anything else that I'm missing, Steve?
No, quick question. Have you explored developing a tool to transform from text or doc to MyST?
Yes. There is some very alpha information or program out there that works with LaTeX at the moment. And there is a blog post that maybe Steve, you can link into the chat that goes through that. And it is pretty exciting, especially in the live preview sense, in that you can have your LaTeX document in whatever program that you're using to edit that. And then you can have, in a similar way, a live preview that does a pretty good job at understanding the various pieces of LaTeX. It is definitely not a full LaTeX renderer by any means, but it allows you to maybe work in a LaTeX first way and have this web-based preview as well. Awesome. I'm gonna pop the question about Quarto to the end, I think. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Alrighty. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually go in and work with notebooks. And to do this, we're going to look at this notebook 2, which we're actually going to use in Jupyter Lab and show off some of the new extensions that are actually using MyST.js to do live rendering in Jupyter Lab. And so this is that Jupyter Lab extension that is now actually rendering MyST.js, MyST Markdown information directly in Jupyter Lab. And so this can give us very nice looking front matter and allow us to edit that directly. And so this is just a normal Jupyter notebook, and so we can execute it, and hopefully that actually Oh, right. I showed the one in the second second piece over here. And so we can start to see some interactive plots coming into place, and we can maybe say some important thing that maybe this is actually just random noise. And in this case, we want to make this a little bit more important. And so we're going to use the MyST directive for important over here. And when we execute that, that again just sort of improves the styling. It's using that same functionality that the book theme is using. And so it's all starting to come together here. And so I can save that. And then if I have my web server running in the background, I can also see that over in my website environment. And so this is pulling in that interactive information. Right now, this is this is using an Altair plot, but you could use Plotly, for example. And so some of these are remain interactive directly in MyST. And then there's other pieces as well that we're starting to get the figures from our document directly into these notebook views. And so one common thing that happens is in a results section, you might have some notebooks that are discussing that are actually doing your data analysis for your scientific paper, and you want to be able to bring those into your document. And so I'm going to create another figure here that is actually going to render, that is going to pull that information so that when we change it, it dynamically renders. And so over in our notebook, we've added this label, and right now this is written in a syntax with this #bang at the start, and then it has a label, and I'm just going to copy that label and bring it into our figure directive using the # command as well. And when I hit save there, we should see our results section with the figure down the bottom. And so what that means is if we actually change this to a different color map and hit save, then almost instantly that shows up directly right there. And then we can also change this to the interactive charts as well. And so we can come in here and say horsepower, for example, and now our live preview of results brings that interactive chart in. And we can also do the cross-reference to that figure as well if we wanted, in terms of having a figure reference as well. And so when we click on that, that does, well, the layout needs to be a little bit better, but that's starting to bring in that full information into wherever we're referencing those pieces. And so I'm going to change that back to Plasma, and I'm going to quickly go out to that 2-column PDF again. So we'll say MyST build. Actually, I'm just going to do a MyST clean quickly. So MyST clean deletes all of my exports. And so I can now do a MyST build, and that'll again just go through and build those two types of. Oh, it is complaining about the duplicate identifier. That is fair. Maybe I will change this to fig plasma and build that again. And so this is coming through, and you can see that a lot of our figures are now much better. We're starting to see those references. In this case, these are numerical references, and our figures are coming in. Okay, so we have gone through a lot of information in this. The final piece that I want to show is actually getting this out to the world. And so the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use the curve note command line tool. And so this is a slightly different tool, but it's built on MyST as well. And so you can use all of the commands in CurveNote interchangeably with the commands in MyST, and so to choose whichever command line you want. And I am going to say myst deploy and bring this out to a website. And so in a few seconds, that will upload those files and get this out to a website that I've done a tiny bit of configuration before this call. But otherwise, oh man, it is hanging. Okay, good. There we go. And we have a website that we can start to share with people. And so this has packaged up that entire website and started to bring that theme together. We have the color map and the results that we put in there. This is live. I can put it in the chat, and you guys can go and see that. And this is one of those ways to close the loop and try and get information out to people as fast as it is going. Okay, so that was a lot of information. I think we have 10 more minutes in the hour that we set aside. Thank you so much for showing up. Please go ahead and try out myst.tools. The docs for the JavaScript libraries are at js.myst.tools. If you are hosting a journal or doing some other cool science communication stuff, please do get in touch with us. We'd love to do some work with you. And I will leave it there. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks very much, Rowan. Right,
Well,
everybody, I'm just